Came here last year and we did the same series of netting, and we caught loads of fish. It was struggling. Gavin was struggling with anyone catching anything really, to be honest. They'd had it done before, and unfortunately, rather than addressing the problem with fine mesh like this and taking out the tiny fish which are causing the problem, the people who did it took away bream, which was a valuable fish, the asset really. So they got taken away, which is a bit of a shame. But anyway, now, and it still didn't fish very well after that. So rather than keep putting more and more fish in, we did it with the fine mesh net, and it's very shallow this lake. It's not difficult to net, and we've graded out 600-700 pounds of 1 to 3 inch fish, which went in a little tiny pond just next door, and that helped massively because it's not very deep in here, it's not very big, but it freed up the space, freed up the oxygen, and then suddenly the match weights, people actually started catching for a start. But then it changed everything around. Gavin has put some more fish in because we did take a lot out of numbers, so he, obviously wants to keep everyone happy, so he put more fish in, but not to the extent it was before. So now, obviously, to keep on top of that, we're just back again to try and catch some more small fish. Hopefully, we'll be able to just shift some, show you what we're doing, and then put the rest back. And that's it, really. And then hopefully, he'll have another stress-free year instead of worrying about what people are catching in matches. Gav's invested in a lot more fish after a couple of years of it being a bit iffy, and he's lost quite a few due to low oxygen, bits and pieces like that. He's invested in more fish, put a lot more bream in and eyed and bits and pieces, and they look really good. But to get them through next year, again, we've done the same thing using the fine mesh, and this is what we've taken out, just a little tiny roach. There's some quality roach in here, but like we keep saying, with these small waters as well, something's always going to reproduce. And just by taking out these fish, which don't really get caught anyway, and they're always going to be an abundance of them, you can just keep things going, especially with the drought we're having and the heat in the summer. It's really important to create that space. If you're going to invest money in fish and increase the biomass, it's important then to look at ways to balance that out. So if you can take fish out that aren't getting caught, these aren't worth anything. They're just always going to be the issue, and we see this more often than not. So instead of taking out valuable fish, we put all the good stuff back, and just every year with fine mesh nets just crop off the smaller the better really, and that's just creating space, and that's what it's all about. So then hopefully it'll go through next summer without any problems. Gavin bought before he had a aerator running most of the time with no oxygen meter, so there's no way of determining the oxygen levels. And since he's bought the oxygen meter and realised that actually most of the time the oxygen's absolutely fine, he hasn't needed it. So whilst an oxygen meter might sound expensive, it's a lot less expensive than buying than the electricity now to run the aerators, especially when you don't need them. And a lot of clubs can take heed of that, because we get a lot of these places where they've constantly got aeration on, and you say, well, what's the oxygen levels? And they don't know. So they just have it on all the time. Or to me, that's a complete waste of time. It's not very sensible fishery management, because you need that as a backup. It's sat over there. It's there in case you need it, but you don't want it unless you need it, in my opinion. There's no point just having it on, mainly because of the cost, but also because it's not a good gauge of what your fish are doing. If you need to be monitoring your oxygen levels, even this time of year, because it's 15, 16 degrees today. So yeah, all those sort of things are helping Gavin build up his information, so that every year, instead of it being a headache when people aren't catching, they'll get more bites. And this is definitely a big key part of that.
Bye.